Peace and blessings to everybody. Peace and blessings to everybody. Voices for the voiceless. And we're here. I got my sister with me, Mika, aka Blessed Girl. Peace and
Hello,
blessings.
everyone.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So right now, we trying out some new things with the platform, trying to spice it up a little bit. But as the title says, who is George Soros? Part one. And next time we come around for part two, more than likely we'll be live, so we'll get the engagement. But the reason that we're doing this is because as you know, on this platform, Voices for the Voiceless, we've been diving very deep into the politics, and me and Sis was chopping it up, and we came across like this name George Soros a lot as it pertains to different funding for the Democratic Party, and specifically. And, not to say that George Soros is the only funder of the Democratic Party, but it was just somewhere where we wanted to place a starting point. Sis, you want to give them a little bit of insight on, what led us on this path?
Yeah, well, George Soros' name has been kind of floating around here quite often, and we've been hearing his name a lot when it comes down to um, the funding, and when they so-called say the deep state, and the deep state is typically who um, fund a lot of these the parties, whether it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. So we just basically just was curious and wanted to get a little information and do a little research, and you know we did a lot of research today, and we've been kind of doing some research, but today we was able to do a lot more, and we just wanted to bring the information to the people, our panel, uh, our chat, sorry, the chat, and just to let people know who George Soros really is.
Absolutely. And once again, this is just the beginning. We're going to do, obviously, we're going to do a part two. It may be a part three, but I want to present something right now. It's an article just to get off into his history. And the things that we have found have been somewhat astonishing. I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to try to blow it up for you. Hopefully y'all can see. And I'm going to read this for y'all. And we're going to stop. And it's a picture of George Soros right here as well. It's an article. Open Society Foundation. Yes. So that's George Soros. Under George Soros' leadership, the Open Society Foundation support individuals and organizations across the globe working to advance human rights, equity, and justice. Now, on the surface, that sounds pretty innocent, right?
Hmm.
Personal history. George Soros experienced ethnic and political intolerance firsthand. Born in Hungary in 1930, he lived through the Nazi occupation of 1944 to 1945, which resulted in the murder of over 500,000 Hungarian Jews. His own Jewish family survived by securing false identity papers, concealing their backgrounds, and helping others do the same. Soros later recalled that not only did we survive, but we managed to help others. Wow. So just a little brief history right there. Born in Hungary in 1930, lived through the Nazi occupation of 1944 and 1945. Wow. 500,000 Hungarian Jews. So he been through some things. He's seen some things in his lifetime. Um, 1944, the year of the German occupation, was my favorite formative experience. Instead of submitting to our fate, we resisted an evil force that was much stronger than we were. Yet we prevailed. And that was a quote from George Soros himself. As the communists consolidated power in Hungary, After the war, Soros left Budapest in 1947 for London. So he went to London in 1947, working part-time as a railroad porter and as a nightclub waiter to support his studies at the London School of Economics. In 1956, he immigrated to the United States, entering the world of finance and investments. That's key right there. So, immigrated in 1956. He was born in 1930, so that would have made him about 26 years old at that time.
Yep.
Yep, and went into finance and investments, where he made his fortune. In 1970, he launched his own hedge fund and went on to become one of the most successful investors in the history of the United States. So, an illegal immigrant from Hungary, one of the most successful investors in the United States. And that's a younger picture. George Soros. That was in Berlin in 2004. Started in Hungary in the mid 1980s. George Soros used his fortune to build a philanthropic network that became the Open Society Foundation. The name reflecting the influence of philosopher Karl Popper, whom Soros first encountered as a student at the London School of Economics in his book, Open Society and Its Enemies. Now, this is a book he was reading by Karl Popper, and it argued that philosophy or ideology is not the final arbitrator of the truth, and that societies can only flourish when they allow for democratic governance. Hold on, let me highlight that. Democratic governance, freedom of expression, and respect for individual rights, and approach at the core of the Open Society Foundation's works. So this is back in the mid 1980s. He was already off into the democratic governance. Interesting. George Soros began his philanthropy in 1979, giving scholarships to Black South Africans under apartheid. In the 1980s, he helped promote the open exchange of ideas in communist Hungary by funding academic visits to the West and supporting fledgling independent cultural groups, as well as other initiatives. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, he created Central European University as a space to foster critical thinking, which at that time was an alien concept for most universities in the former communist bloc. With the Cold War over, he gradually expanded his philanthropy to Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the United States, supporting a vast array of new efforts to create more accountability, transparent, and democratic societies. So he was on a mission to create these democratic societies. He was one of the early prominent voices to criticize the war on drugs as arguably more harmful than the drug problem itself. Huh? And helped kickstart America's medical marijuana movement. In the early 2000s, he became a vocal backer of He became a vocal backer of same-sex marriage efforts. Though his causes have evolved over time, they continue to hew closely to his ideas of an open society. So we're starting to see where a lot of these policies and ideologies are coming from within the Democratic Party. Same-sex marriage, war on drugs, open society, anything goes. So these are just highlights of George Soros. His giving has reached beyond his own foundations, supporting independent organizations such as Global Witness, the International Crisis Group, the European Council on Foreign Relations, and the Institute for the New Economic Thinking. While often declining awards to keep focus on the work itself, Soros accepted select honors, including honorary doctorates from Yale, Oxford, and Corvinus Budapest. He was elected for an honorary fellow of the British Academy and named Financial Times 2018 Person of the Year for championing democracy. In 2025, President Biden awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest honor, civilian honor, recognizing his lifetime of work in advancing open society, democracy, there go that word again, and
Mhm.
human rights worldwide. I'm just saying. President Biden, January 6, 2025, awarded George Soros Presidential Medal of Freedom. Wow. Now, in his 90s, Soros continues to take an active personal interest in the Open Society Foundations, traveling widely to support our work and advocating for positive policy changes with world leaders, both publicly and privately. In 2017, the Open Society Foundations announced that Soros had transferred 18 billion of his fortune towards funding the future work of the foundations, bringing his total giving to the foundation since 1984 to over $32 billion. So he's given over 32 billion
Mm.
basically to the Democratic Party since 1984. He says, and I quote, I believe that in philanthropy, one should do the right thing, whether or not it succeeds, end quote, George Soros. Throughout Soros' philanthropy career, one thing has remained constant: a commitment to fighting the world's most intractable problems. He has been known to emphasize the importance of tackling losing causes. Indeed, many of the issues Soros has taken on and would be the first to admit are the types of issues for which a complete solution might never emerge. Quote, my success my success in the financial markets has given me a greater degree of independence than most other people, Soros once wrote. That independence has allowed him to forge his own path toward a world that's more open, more just, and more equitable for all. For more information about George Soros, got to go to the Open Society. But yeah, so I wanted to just read that right quick, just to give you guys a quick overview, and we can stop this stream. So basically, I feel as though this would be a good way to introduce, because a lot of those, as you can see from the beginning of his life, a lot of these ideologies that of democratic that we see today comes from George Soros, when he's funding these politicians and he's giving them his view of how he would like the world to be. And in another article, we'll find that he, although was born Jewish, he doesn't subscribe to being Jewish. He's actually an atheist, so he doesn't believe in the Creator at all. So, with that being said, sis, what's your takes away from that?
Well, after us doing just the research that we kind of did today, it just makes a lot of sense as to, the policies and the laws now that's being passed and who's really, um, where the funding is coming from, um, and who's just really, backing this, the different laws and different things. And so, um, the more we kind of went in and researched today, it was just very interesting. And like you said, we wanted to just give like a brief overview of who George Soros is, So whenever we do go live, we'll have a lot to uncover, you know. Um, but for the most part, just a brief description of, you know, who he is. And what's interesting is, like you said, the $32 billion that we ran across, as to how he's uh, the money that he's put into the Democratic Party, um, just goes to show you who's really running things, you know. So we
Exactly.
have a lot of these the politicians and presidents that we've had prior to President Trump, um, and as we can see, a lot of the laws really, and it started, I see, started affecting the communities and households when Obama got in office. And once he got in office, that's when we started seeing a little change within, the policies and different things, which we're going to get more into that once we dive, into more of George Soros on our lives. But it's going to be very interesting, you know.
Absolutely. Because I haven't really seen anybody like breaking it down like this, like going, because there's other financial backers that, you know, fund the Democratic Party. What we'll find is that this man came from a different country, went through everything they went through with the, you know, situation in 1944 to 1945. So his view of the world is different than, what we are used to. So a lot of these politicians, they didn't agree with same-sex marriage, and even Obama, before Obama came in, you know, he didn't have that ideology. But once he got tapped in and George Soros, greased his pockets, and we have a video here of Obama actually saying that. And I want to share that because we know Obama was the one that actually gave the green light for same-sex marriage. But in this clip here, he's singing a different tune. So let's say that.
Define marriage.
I believe that marriage is the union between a man and a woman. Now, for me as a Christian, for me,
now I'm just saying. Now we know the laws that Obama implemented, and this is prior to him, tapping in with George Soros, and it's just interesting, to see that switch. Even the Democratic Party as a whole, said the same sentiments that Obama said in this clip.
For me as a Christian, it's also a sacred union. God's in the mix.
Wow. Interesting. But yeah, and just to give y'all a little bit of what we got in store. I don't know if you've heard, if you know, but Elon Musk has came out and said that George Soros is responsible for the attacks on his company Tesla that's been going on around the country. And I actually have an article with that. Now, how interesting is that? Clearly George Soros and the Trump administration have different ideology. But I'm going to read this for you guys. Elon Musk claims investigation links George Soros, Reid Hoffman to funding Tesla takedown. Now, Tesla takedown is the movement that they have been using to attack Elon Musk's company Tesla. Elon Musk accused billionaires George Soros, Reid Hoffman of funding Tesla takedown protests, citing an investigation into ActBlue, He claimed 5 Act Blue funded groups were responsible for protests, although evidence linking them to the protests remains unsubstantiated. But it's just interesting. And I'm not going to read everything. I just want y'all to show that it's real. Elon Musk is accusing George Soros and Reid Hoffman, another billionaire, for, targeting his company. And we'll get more into depth with that and why we believe that he believes this to be the case, even though the evidence is not substantiated. But Act Blue and other groups, this is why he believes that. I give y'all this nugget. Act Blue and other Democratic groups are funded by George Soros. So one would think if they're going out here doing protest under the Act Blue moniker that is funded by billionaires like George Soros and Reid Hoffman, then you're the one that are putting these people up to that. But we'll get more in depth with that in part 2.
And we have
ain't
to
want to come too
understand
long.
too,
Go ahead, sis.
I was gonna say, and two, it's not only a lot of people think, with George Soros, when it comes to him, like it's more in the political, it's more on the political aspect, but he has his hand in the cookie jar when it comes down to the industry. It's like a big organization,
Yes.
in the music industry. So, we'll be able to, like you say, dive a little deeper in it. But yeah, we would definitely have a lot to uncover on our lives.
Absolutely. So yeah, all of this ties in together. Music, politics. A lot of these people are connected through these different organizations. And like Sis said, we're gonna just giving y'all a brief overview, but this is gonna be massive, and you're not gonna want to miss this live when we do present it to you guys. But with that being said, on behalf of Voices for the Voiceless, we appreciate you checking out this video. Tap the like button, like, share, subscribe. Tell a friend to tap in. We're trying to spread the message, and we want to grow our platform. So please give us your support. We appreciate you. And with that being said, until we speak to you again, we shall see you soon. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings, everyone.